your goal is to find the whale. And that's the game, right?
Yeah.
How do I find the whale before the next hottest dancer, the other moneymaker gets to the whale?
Right.
That's what I would imagine what the game actually is in there.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Siervo here, and welcome to another episode of Ready, Set, Sell, the #1 sales podcast streamed live and recorded on interwebs. Of course, my name is Michael Siervo, and I'm here with my amazing co-host and good friend, the one and only Mr. Donny Wong.
What's up, sales world? Guess who's back?
Once again, Shady's back. Speaking about Shady, we got an interesting topic that can be shady if you want it to be. However, there are lessons embedded in everything that we do and everything we talk about. But I was reading a statistic. Now, guys, I don't frequent the strip clubs. It's just something that I just don't do. I am a little bit more pragmatic with my money. However, I was reading a statistic, and it said something along the lines of that there are close to over 4,000 strip clubs in the United States beginning in 2022. And Donnie, check this one out. According to statistics, believe it or not, 1 out of 3 strippers are actually dancing to put themselves through school. Do you believe it?
Interesting.
Do you believe it though?
No, but hey, they've done more homework than I have, clearly.
So the idea and why we bring this up is if they're in fact putting themselves through school, they've chosen a profession that, one, they can make a ton of money. And in fact, because this is a sales podcast, we're going to be talking about why we believe strippers are some of the best salespeople around.
Now, here's some of my initial research. Now, this came from a Reddit thread, so it's not exactly utmost top-notch journalism. However, in these threads, they did say that they have several customers. These are from dancers that have jumped into the Reddit threads, and they said they have customers that will spend anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000 a night on dances alone.
Insane.
And do this multiple nights every single week. So there's money to be made here.
There's money. Now, my question is, Donnie, is that primary research based off of your research? No, I'm just joking. So we're going to be talking about why we believe strippers are some of the best salespeople in the world. And there's a lot that we could learn from them. Not only do they have a specific skill set, but based off of what you're talking about, they're high ticket closers, and they seem to know what they're talking about. I was reading another statistic, and they said something along the lines of the average age of a stripper is anywhere from 23 to 24, which tells me that there's a small window of opportunity where they can make their bread. Yeah,
definitely. And kind of going off what you're saying, it's also such a short sales cycle. Okay. It's very, very short. Usually it's lower ticket item, right? That first dance is usually what, $20 is going, right? So it's a low ticket item and it's high volume. But what's interesting is that they have different levels where maybe it's just buy me a beer at first. Then they can upsell you to, hey, let's have a dance. Ultimately, they want to get you to the VIP. So, and that can all happen in the course of what, 4 songs? So I love how fast the transactions are. It's a different type of game from, say, big ticket items that may take, long sales cycles, 6 weeks or whatnot. This is a different sport here. Yeah. This is sport hunting. So can't wait to get into this one.
It's a completely different sport because there's so many embedded lessons that we could learn from the art. And I'm not talking about the art of stripping, but the art of of sales and how they utilize it. The first thing that I would say is, they really know what they have to offer. They know their product, and they got one product to sell, which is the experience. And tied into that experience is, of course, they dress up, they look good. Very seldom do you see an out of shape stripper, right? Most of them take pride in their craft. So what do you say about just the overall experience of what they're selling? How can they justify charging the exuberant price of up to $15,000 a day?
Well, they're masters of body language first and foremost. They can easily read a room. They can tell who's the spenders, who's the cheapskates, who's worth spending time with. I think what they're really great at is the image first and foremost. They are selling sex at the end of the day, so that the image is number one. Visually, how are they going to outcompete all these other dancers who are in the same room? Because they're all selling the same thing. Right. So visually, I think they have got it nailed down better than anybody else. Maybe them and maybe say, the ones who are selling luxury brand. Realtors will really know this very well. Exotic cars, expensive real estate. They understand that the image is really important, and exotic dancers, strippers, they know this at the highest level because they know that's probably going to do 80% of the selling. If you look good, if you're strutting right, if you're alluring, the way they dance and present on stage, that is all hyper visual.
Yeah, there's a lot of confidence in what they're doing as well, because the outfits that they're wearing is not something that you could walk around regularly in the streets. It's really reserved for that specific environment. They control their environment. They're so good at it. And by doing that, they're able to say, okay, I know what my target market's going to be. It's going to be a guy that walks into this particular venue and they're looking for one thing. If I can, get them as a client and elevate that one thing to a certain extent, they can make a ton of money. So Donny, going back to, you talked about how look sells and sex sells. When we're talking about these strippers, and you said that what they have to compete and differentiate themselves from the other wonderful strippers out there. What do you think makes the top-notch stripper stand out from the average, dancer out there?
Well, I would probably say, now let's get past the original. Obviously, the hotter you are, the easier the job is going to be for the most part. But I got to say, a part of it is just understanding how to close. It's understanding who do I need to talk to, who's going to pay money, who's ready to pay money now, who do I got to set up, maybe come back to them later. Understand how to approach people the right way, the right timing, I think has got to be right. Because I think there's times where you're going to come in, they're going to know, hey, these guys are ready to spend money, but maybe I don't want to go. They're a little bit drunk right now.
Right.
Whereas maybe with this group here, I got to warm them up a little bit. So maybe I'll go in there, and they're probably really great at, I wouldn't say the cold approach, but the warm approach.
Right.
Because, they're not a stranger approaching the street, but at the same time, they're doing these lightning fast calculations of how you look, your body language, how they catch your eye. They can tell so much just by the look in your eye of how fast they should approach and when.
Would you say that they're experts at reading a room?
I think they're experts at reading their room. Just due to that type of industry, I'm sure they're great at reading certain rooms for different types of activities, illegal activities, maybe danger, just like drug dealers. Drug dealers have a heightened sense of mindfulness.
Right.
But they're very attuned to their own type, right? Is there other types of danger in the room? Is there undercovers in the room? Is there money in the room? And I think exotic dancers, anything from that type of industry, they do have a heightened sense of the room for sure.
The other thing I would say about strippers or exotic dancers or anyone who's selling that experience is, and you mentioned this, you kind of alluded to this, you said that they essentially slow play. Right, they get into it. They build rapport. I think that's one lesson that every salesperson has to master, is how do you build rapport? And of course they have a shorter window. They're trying to close a deal within that night because they're not going to see this other person a night afterwards or a week afterwards. Like their sales cycle is super, super close. So how do you think they build that rapport to be able to close that deal and ultimately close $15,000 a night?
Well, I don't know how you're going to close $15,000 a night. I think that would be a great talk for someone who's doing it. Right. But, if I was to base anything, it's obviously going to be judging, hey, how is this person looking at me? Right off the bat, I can tell by their eyes. Okay, this guy's got googly eyes. I've got him.
Right.
So let me go up here and just talk to him first. Let's see how it is. Could be something like, hey boys, how you doing tonight? Could be something like, what are you doing tonight? Or it could be simple as, hey, want to buy me a drink?
Right.
Anything to get the conversation going. And then the next level is, okay, well, let me see how this conversation goes. If they're already googly eyes, head over heels, boom, we're going to the VIP. Let's ask for the dance. Right. Or maybe it's, hey, they're pretty standoffish. Maybe I can create some sort of conversation. I think more than likely they're going to look for the low-hanging fruit at first. Get the cash going, maybe get your own momentum going throughout the night first. Maybe I should build these people throughout the room. Let me see where the honey is. Let me see where the money is first. Right. Once I've exhausted those, let me go to the second ones.
Right.
I think ultimately a lot of how they work the room in terms of rapport must be a lot like how men would work a room and when they're looking for a lady for that night, where it's like, well, I probably won't just be able to take somebody home right away. So let me try and work the room a little bit. Let me try and make sure I get my rapport going. Let me try and meet as many people. Let me try and just be in a good mood, in a good attitude, because it's showtime.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could wait to the very end. You're like, oh, I struck out your last person on the dance floor. You're coming home with me. Or your lights come off. You're like, ah. But I agree with you. They build that rapport. They can read a room. And as salespeople, we can learn a lot from them. That it's really all about building that relationship, that understanding them, maybe asking them like, are you guys here for business? Are you guys partying? Really get to know them on a superficial level. But in that heightened experience, it feels like a real interaction with real human beings. Mind you, we know that it's all fantasy, which leads me to another point. One of the things that strippers do is they sell a fantasy. Yeah. They sell a future in terms of how is it going to be if we went in the back room? How is it going to be if you hung out with me for the rest of the night? You could even tell by the type of conversation, if they're an interesting conversation and they happen to be good looking. So walk me through, like, talk to me. What are your thoughts about just like them selling a future fantasy, which we could learn as salespeople?
Well, I think the fantasy obviously is, hey, this is as sexual, as alluring as it could possibly get, right? What's under the clothes? But I think where the real sell, and this is what really makes them special, is that, yeah, they're going to come and do their conversations. Yeah, they can read a room, but they're different from everybody else. They're a line of work because not only are they working the room, but when they get called on stage, they're working the entire room. No other kind of professional, like maybe a stand-up comedian, where you work the entire room and you can sway people, non-buyers, or maybe people who weren't ready to it, like, wow, she just crushed it. I have to get a dance from her.
Right.
So there's this element of performance, there's an element of seduction, and there's also an element of business, because at the end of the day, what they're going to try and do is, I'm going to get as much money out of this person as possible. I'm going to sell them as much of my product as possible. So let me make sure I set this up. And let me tell you, when they get on that stage and that dance, the ones that do it well, that's a whole nother level to the game. Because you could be hot, you could be sociable, but if you can turn the non-buyers into buyers on the stage, you've probably reached a whole nother pinnacle. Because after you get off the stage, if you just wow them, they need to talk to you now.
Yeah.
I need to talk to her. Oh, I got to get that one over here. Whatever it takes, let's go to the VIP. No questions asked.
Line up to get to her, right? They're like, oh yes, that 2-hour wait, whatever it might be. It's interesting because you talked about how they put on a show and they win the room over. You talked about how obviously the hottest dancer typically gets the most looks in most dances, but it doesn't necessarily mean they get repeat dances or longer dances. It might just be one dance, and I think it comes down to effort. The ones that I've seen, and again, I don't want to profess to be an expert in this area. However, the ones that I saw that were the best in terms of the most busiest were the ones who put an amazing show on, an amazing effort. And you paint that picture like, if that girl is dancing like that up on stage to this inanimate object, this pole, just imagine if I'm in the back with that in the room. Like, how fun would that be? So I think it comes down to effort, and as salespeople, we need to put more than 100%, like max effort, because a client's going to look at you and say, wow, if this salesperson is working this hard while I'm a prospect, just imagine when I'm a client.
And the other side to that as well is, because we're talking about this high skill, high energy, high charismatic type of sale, but at the same time, it's a short sale.
Yeah.
It's a very low ticket item. It's $20. So technically, you don't need to think much about it. Right? You should be able to close somebody within seconds or minutes on a $20 sale. So the fact that there's so many levels to the game, where it's like, okay, I can't get them on the $20 now. Maybe I can get them on a drink. Let me try and get them on the $5.
Right.
Let me get in there so we can sit down and talk. Hold on a sec. Room, I'm about to shut it down.
Yeah.
Let me go on stage.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can work them into the high ticket, into the VIP.
Right.
So I just love how many layers there are to the game. I love how everyone's competing, even though it is technically a short sale and should move fast and high volume, but everyone in there is competing for a very limited number of customers in that certain hour as they're rotating in and out. And of those certain people, there's a small pool who actually are going to pay money. and even smaller are the ones who are going to be able to spend a lot of money. So as a dancer, your goal is to find the whale. And that's the game, right?
Yeah.
How do I find the whale before the next hottest dancer, the other moneymaker gets to the whale?
Right.
That's what I would imagine what the game actually is in there.
So the game is not necessarily just selling the dance or the experience. It is finding the ideal client, because that ideal client can make or break your entire night. And as salespeople, that ideal client, all it takes is like one massive win and you could set your entire year up. So I think it's equivalent to like this is a stripper world, right? It's just condensed in a very, very small sales cycle. But when you take a look at the sales in general, if you can get that whale, and if you could impress that whale despite all the other competition in a very noisy world around you, that could really make or break your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think now that we're talking about out loud, talking about, come full circle, that's probably how you go for the 5,000 and 15,000. First off, do you even have the skills to recognize the $5,000 whale?
Right.
And then do you even have the skills to get close enough where you have the opportunity to close the $15,000 whale, let alone showtime and actually close it, or keep that account going so you can make as much as you can throughout the night. It's quite a dance.
Yeah. Going back to that $5,000 whale, I think to myself, if I was a $5,000 whale and I'm going to drop that amount of money at one of these venues, I would have to ask, is this dance worth, or is this moment we're spending worth $5,000? Because there's a lot of things.
It's great that you bring it up, because that's the magic of a good dancer.
Right.
They'll transport you to a place where you don't even question the $5,000, where in fact she's making you calculate and convince yourself that $5,000, whatever, that's nothing. I'll spend $5,000 right now.
Yeah, best night of my life.
And I think that's where a lot of people can. That could be the metaphor of a great sale, where you show up and visually you're stunning.
Right.
Visually, you command so much attention that they want to speak to you. They want to know you more. Sex has a little bit of part of it, because sex is such a visual, starts with visual, especially for men. And in this arena, it's all men for the most part. The second part, obviously, we're talking about is the pitch itself, right? Their pitch is probably really short, because that's all they need. It's a fast, short sale.
Right.
And then ultimately, it's going to be about, okay, well, how do I keep them coming back? How do I keep them coming back? How do I find the whale?
Do you think that, and this is like in many different sales processes, give something for nothing, right? Sit down. Oftentimes they'll sit down, they'll talk to you, spend a good 25 minutes getting to know you, and then they'll say, hey, so you ready for a dance, right? They tend to do that. I mean, it's a very shorter sales cycle, but in the real world of sales, would you agree that salespeople should be giving at least a little bit of a taste of what it is to actually be working with us, right? Like, it's just what you're doing is selling samples, bite-sized samples of a grander experience. And I think as salespeople, we got to remember that.
Yeah, and again, from the dancers, what we can learn here from is not only they're masters of body language, they're masters of judging and persuading different types of personalities. Right. Some people that they're horn dogs, boom, easy sell. But some people, maybe they're more sophisticated buyer. And in here, okay, maybe I got to talk to them a little bit more.
Right.
Okay, they're kind of standoffish. Okay, well, how do I warm them up a little bit without making them seem like I'm this object? And maybe there's some times where they say, okay, this guy did not come here to spend money. I'm going to break this guy tonight.
It's a game to them.
Exactly. And just like most salespeople too, right? Just because they're not following your script doesn't mean your attitude falls apart.
Right.
Do you have enough skill and wherewithal to engage in this person? Ask the right questions, get them engaged, make them intrigued in me, so that we can talk about, eventually move to business. We might not be necessarily solving a problem for dancers, because that's not really the sale. I'm not trying to solve a problem.
Right.
I'm trying to make a gain, not avoid a pain.
Right.
So the gain here is, can I get you off? Can I fulfill your fantasies? Whereas in a normal sales cycle, I'm not trying to fulfill your fantasies, but I'm trying to make this as alluring, that's within my social construct that allows within this whatever my industry is, right?
I've never met a single person throughout university, bachelor parties, wherever it might be, and we've gone to these exotic nightclubs where someone spent X amount of dollars and walked away with a face of disgust. Oh, I spent all that money. Most of the time, they're smiling. They're like, "Yep, I just dropped X amount of dollars," and they're okay with it.
They're okay with it. They make great stories, and the next day, it's a damn good laugh.
Yeah, that's true. So they see value in the overall experience.
I think so, and I think that's what they do best. Is at the end of the day, hey, we're gonna make this fun,
right?
And I think that's what they do. They make this fun. They make it sexy. They make sure that it's a safe place for you to come in. Let's have the best 20 minutes of your life, and off you go.
Right.
No strings attached. This is what this is.
One last point with regards to a lesson that we could learn from strippers and exotic dancers is we know that none of their names are the real names. Like, you'll never see an exotic dancer next up on stage, Agnes or Ruthie or whatever it might be. They tend to be these exotic names, Candy, Cinnamon. And it goes down to branding. They're excellent at branding.
Without a doubt. They're excellent at branding. And once again, creating this image, this alter ego is the brand. This is who I am when I enter these doors. This is who I am when I am, working the room. And it all has to come full circle in that package.
Mm-hmm. There's so many lessons. Ideally, you and I, when we were talking about this topic, we said we should bring a stripper here and interview her. Mm-hmm. But obviously it's very difficult. Sometimes they keep their lives very private. Mm-hmm. But the lessons we've learned interviewing them, talking, reading these articles, there's a ton of lessons. And I would argue that strippers are among the best salespeople in the world. And you were just talking about, do you think strippers are actually better than politicians? Because politicians are selling something as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's such a good question, because I think that their sale is almost intrinsically pulling on the same human emotions, right? Where it's all about seduction. It's about an allure. I would say the politician is more about, they're trying to portray the image of service, where I am here to represent you, whereas the dancers, I'm here to represent your fantasies. I'm here to be what you can't get. Right. The politicians here, I'm here to get what you want.
Right. I think that the stripper just knows their craft inside and out. Mm-hmm. They know themselves internally. They know their value in terms of that world, maybe not outside of it. I don't know, but within that world, they know that they're a $5,000 a night dancer. And because of that, they can charge that. And there's so many lessons that we could learn. The idea of branding, the idea of understanding your target market. Mm-hmm. The last point I want to talk about is they are relentless. Right?
Indeed.
Yeah. So strippers have this perseverance. They will keep coming at you. And I think going back to that, the average age is 23 to 24 years old. There's a very short window. They need to make as much money as they can during this amount of time. And it all comes down to their perseverance, their relentlessness, their determination to close, and being very scientific almost to try to find the right person to close. And there's only so much hours in the night.
Yeah, I think ultimately in this episode, we've taken away all the sexiness out of it, and we sound like two nerds. So I think what's appropriate is we go down there and really refine these theories of ours, and go down there and do the actual research.
Yes, primary research. But that is for another episode. But Donny, great conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, if you liked what you saw, follow this. We want to know, what are your thoughts? Is there another industry that's better than a stripper that can sell better? Because we're chatting about that. Is it a real estate agent? Is it the politician? Is it car salesman? Right now, at this point in time, Donny and I have come to the conclusion that strippers are among the best.
Among the best. And if you would like us to take this show on location to a strip club so we can conduct this live, write to us, let us know.
And sponsor that show.
And finally, in the comments, let us know, who has the better stripper DJ voice? Is it Michael Siervo or is it Donny Wong?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome up on stage, Donny. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Great episode. Sell like a stripper. And see you soon. All the best.
Goodbye.